Ah! Greetings, brethren, CloakingDonkey here, once again examining Camelot Unchained for everyone's convenience. Told you about many important things and there are still some to come, but this one might be one of the biggest. I should probably have actually tackled it sooner, but hindsight is 20/20, so here it goes. Let's face it, the game world or map or whatever you want to call it is one of the most important parts of any MMORPG, because apart from your character, what do you interact with more than the actual game world? Without a game world, there's really no game. And in a faction-based open PvP game such as Camelot Unchained, the map is even more important than it is in other games. Because in order for you to have that open world feel, the map just can't be too crazy. You can't have giant mountain ranges encircling a bunch of zones everywhere so you can have your ice zone and your desert zone, because that's just a bit too on the nose for nowadays. Luckily, that is not the plan for Camelot Unchained. The game world in Camelot Unchained is supposed to be rather dynamic and chaotic in some ways as well. Now with this episode specifically, I want to once again make sure that everybody is aware that this game is still very much in alpha. Any of these things I talk about might change until the game releases. So please don't come and lynch me when all of this game world map stuff that I'm about to talk about doesn't quite 100% come true this way. As always, I feel the ideas behind this system are very solid and very cool and should be shared with as many people as possible. The basic idea of the game world in Camelot Unchained is to have 3 basic safe zones. Each of these safe zones houses the main city for one of the 3 factions. But these safe zones also include plenty of space around the main city that act both as a staging ground for new players coming to the faction and as a steady source for basic resources that are always going to be available for the realm. So that even in case your realm is pushed back by the other realms so hard that you have nothing left outside of your safe zone, you will always have an area to start building from again. This is in compliance with their basic principle that while there should be consequences for everything that happens, you don't ever want to push anyone to the point of rage quitting. And giving everybody a little bit of a starting help to get back into the game is certainly not a bad thing. After all, they're not trying to build an FFA gank box rife with griefing, they're trying to build a fun faction RVR experience. Now when the game launches, the world map is going to look sort of like this. This is just an early sketch and serves as an example, so don't expect this exact map to make it into the game, but it shows you what they're going for. Around the edges of the map you have the 3 safe zones with their respective main cities. And between them you have various islands of varying sizes, separated by lots and lots of water. This is kind of where the name of the game comes into play as well, because once upon a time the map actually looked like this, with Camelot in the center and lots of verdant, fruitful land surrounding it. But then the veil was pierced and the land broke apart, hence Camelot Unchained. Get it? Super clever, innit? Anyway, these islands represent the world that we fight over, and you can go to any of these islands and claim the land for your faction. When this land is neutral, so for example right after the game launches, it will have a neutral, sort of calamitous appearance. But as soon as you claim some of this land for your faction, it will also take over the appearance of land of your faction. Arthurian land will be plainsy and rocky, kind of like England. Tuatha De Danann land will have lots of forests, be incredibly gnarly and overgrown, like fairy wonderland, and Viking lands will be snowy and harsh. Once enough people from your faction have claimed territory on these islands, you can bring stabilizers to the island. These stabilizers, once built, will claim the entire island for your faction, and islands that are claimed by your faction will slowly over time drift towards other islands claimed by your faction. Which is of course very beneficial to your cause because it means shorter travel times to these islands. At some point these islands will be close enough that the water in between will be merely a river, at which point you will even be able to build bridges across. But these islands of course only drift together for as long as you possess them. So if an enemy realm comes in, tears down your stabilizer and claims a bunch of your land, the island will start drifting away from your land again. And if you take over an island completely from an enemy and build a stabilizer, it will start drifting toward your continent. Claiming land for your faction is of course not necessarily free. There will be upkeep costs associated with it, but on the other hand, claiming land for your faction will both increase your reputation with your faction, it will give you experience and all of these things because it is a main part of the game. This territory control aspect is really what everything in Camelot Unchained revolves around. Because when you claim the land, that's where you can actually build houses and keeps and castles, which can then be sieged, which leads to combat, which leads to the magic system, etc, etc. As I said, I probably should have tackled this specific one a little bit earlier, because so many things revolve around this system of the map. For example, you could argue that in some other games, the map is actually the reason why those games never actually ended up doing very well. But even if claiming land costs some amount of upkeep for the players, the benefits you gain from having the land are even beyond experience and reputation with your faction. It gives you access to the places of power, it gives you map control, and more importantly, it gives you access to all of those juicy resources. If you build your city and defenses right next to a bunch of really important resources, well, that takes those resources away from the enemy, and it gives you and your realmates an advantage in terms of crafted gear over the enemy. And not to forget, of course, bragging rights. Being the guild that finally claimed the island that has a mine of magnificum dragon steel, and as such enabled the faction to have the most legendary of swords, is going to be the hero guild for a while. Each of the islands in between the 3 save zones is not created equally. There will be smaller islands with perhaps less tactical resources that are just closer to another island and are really just a stepping stone to get another one hooked up with the rest of your land. Other islands may be slightly bigger and have something cool on them, like the places of power that are strewn throughout the world. Or an island could be incredibly rich in medium-level resources, which could make it a very good source of money. Another island could have high-level resources that every faction is so desperate to have. The awesome thing about this system would be that it would create a never-ending possibility of what the map actually looks like. I mean, let's face it, even the biggest and most awesome open world map at some point becomes kind of played and you know where everything is. But if they actually manage to make the world map like this, it could have millions of permutations, depending on how many islands they have. And land that your faction may have claimed for months might suddenly be conquered by the enemy faction, and the entire continent shifts and changes until it's almost unrecognizable. Pair that with the system of the land reacting to whoever owns it, means icy islands could turn into lush forest environments or into rocky plains, which could itself change the dynamic of how the map of an island plays out in combat entirely. The options with a system like this make my head spin, and I think that is kind of the problem with it, because I'm not sure we're actually going to see all of these features. If we do, that would of course be amazing, but let's not get carried away. I for one really hope that they manage to bring this map system to life, because I really think that this would be the biggest selling point of the game to anyone really. I mean, what game has a map this dynamic? Alright guys, that is it for this episode of Camelot Unchained Examined. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider giving the video a like and also consider subscribing for more gaming, history and mythology content. Also check out my stream over at twitch.tv/CloakingDonkey, where I stream regularly now, so come on over and hang out. But until then, I've been the Cloaking Donkey, and I'll see you in another video!